Okay, welcome to this week's Q&A. I'm guessing that this is happening now. There we go. Welcome to this week's Q&A. Hi, how are you doing today? I'm Vanya Fatidis from Peaceful Eating, where I help people around the world come to a place of peace and ease in their bodies and with food, so that really you can live your life your way unapologetically in the skin that you're in. So each week I answer subscriber questions or people in my group, anyone really, anyone can ask me a question about body image, eating, food, relationship with food, and so on. And just so you know, I answer everything anonymously. And also, this usually when somebody's asking me a question, I don't really know anything about them. So these are really sort of general pointers from what I can pick up from the questions that are asked. So this week I have got 4 questions. I've got one about how we persevere with recovery in the face of diet culture that is literally everywhere, how to eat mindfully in social situations, what to do if you and your partner or your partner is bringing in what you perceive to be trigger foods for you, and how to deal with that. And the last one is how to make it not about the weight. So if you're interested in any of these questions, then do keep watching because I will get to them now. All right, so the first question is, how do we persevere and be strong enough to continue with recovery with relentless, constant diet culture in our home, in the media, and from our leaders? So um, that's a great question. It's quite an in-depth question. And here's my response. The first thing that I would say is have compassion. Have compassion for yourself. This is hard, and it doesn't seem to be going away. Diet culture, um, investment in weight loss, belief about the benefits of weight loss. And so it does require something of us to become more resilient to these messages. So when I was thinking about this, I thought, what can we control and what can't we control? So what we can control pretty much is our news feed, pretty much. You can teach Facebook what you do and don't like. Not sure quite how Instagram works. I know that you can report ads, but you can definitely unfollow and unlike people, groups, etc., that promote a weight loss message or excessive um, practices around exercise and so on. So you can take charge of that. There's also an extension that you can get for Facebook called Facebook Purity, and you can really become very targeted around what you do and don't want to see. You can actually filter out certain kinds of words. So this is quite useful to curate your certainly your Facebook feed. You can decide whether you're watching TV or not watching TV, whether you're watching the news or not watching the news, what you're going to read in the newspapers and what you're not going to read in the newspapers. Yes, you don't really have control about what happens to come your way, but you do have control about whether you continue to read it, engage with it, listen to it. So you do have some control over that, but granted, not complete control. What you don't have control over is what the people in your home will do and say, um, particularly as your children, if you have children, get older. You have less and less, less and less sort of input or control around, what's discussed and what isn't. So, what I think is really important in the home is that you are honest with the people you live with around how this impacts you, what happens for you internally, emotionally, but also what happens to you in terms of your your eating behavior. So if there's a lot of diet talk at home, what is the impact on you? How does that translate in terms of your behavior? And what does it do to you emotionally? What does it make you think, etc.? And if you can find the courage to be really open and honest with your family about that, I would hope that they would understand the impact on you. And then you are allowed to make a request. You know, you're allowed to say, these are the, and try to be specific. These are the things that um, are difficult for me and that, you know, translate into that for me. So, you know, if I'm around, I'd really rather this kind of conversation wasn't happening. And you're also allowed to have boundaries. You know, you can first of all request, and if really you're not being heard, then you can take it a step further. You can say, look, I've made a request. This is harmful for my mental health and my physical health, actually. And what I'm going to have to do now is go outside the room whenever this is being talked about. You could try that. I don't know how that would go, but you can try that. But really, I think what we need to do is keep front and center um, how our lives are better when we are really taking our cues from our bodies as much as possible and not from the outside world about what, when, and how much to eat and exercise. And keep developing your own resilience and your own strength around that is not for me. That is really just not for me. I'm doing me, you do you, but this is me. And you know, if the conversation, if this is a lot of the conversation that happens at home, I wonder if you could uh, really try and steer things in another direction. That's one option, or just remove yourself and go and read a book. I know that's hard because it means then you're not part of what's going on in the family, but it's also incumbent on the family to be supportive of you. So I hope that that helps. All right, let's look at the next question. How do you eat mindfully when you're in the company of other people? It's really easy to switch off and overeat when eating and talking. Yes. So this is true, and it's particularly tricky when you are first learning how to eat mindfully, because it's just like anything. You know, if you were learning to play the cello, it would be really distracting and difficult for you to really learn when you're in a sort of busy family environment. You know, being able to just be on your own where you're not distracted by other things, TV, people talking, whatever. It makes sense. But when you're learning to do something, you really do need the focus. And that is harder when there are other people around. So I would suggest that you really put the most of your attention in terms of mindful eating on the times when you are on your own for a meal or a snack, and try to have at least one of those occasions a day if possible. I don't know anything about your situation, or you know, if you have small children or anything like that, but if it's at all possible once a day, then really make that your best practice time. And then when you are with other people, I mean, I suppose there are different grades of being with other people. If you're living in a family situation or you're living with other people, you've got roommates or whatever, then and they're sort of more or less the people you usually are eating with day after day, then that's another step um, to social eating, you know, eating with friends or bigger occasions, that kind of thing. And so what you can do with the people you're living with, if you do live with people, is you could just have the intention to start off mindfully. So you just centering yourself, taking a few breaths, assessing your food, assessing your hunger, and When I say assessing, I mean just sort of taking it in and looking at it and taking in what you can see and smell. And then the first few bites, see if you can have those ones mindfully. And then just let it go. Let the conversation happen and let yourself be involved in the conversation. And then in a little while, you can add another step, which would be to at some point through the meals, just to check in with yourself, just for 3 seconds, 5 seconds. It's just, how am I doing? How full am I feeling? Am I satisfied? Am I still tasting this? Am I enjoying it? Quick kind of assessment, and then carry on. You make your decision. Am I going to eat more? Have I had enough? And then you just carry on with whatever is happening. And then you can incorporate another little sort of mini mindful break in your meal where you're just bringing your attention in. And and what you can do is you just learn to toggle your attention in here, out there, in here, out there, but not, not at quite that rate. That would be quite difficult, but just, every now and again. And then as you become more practiced at mindful eating, it becomes much more natural way for you to be with food. And yes, it will always be a different experience when you're with other people to when you're on your own. And that's okay. That's okay. Take off the pressure around what mindful eating looks like or should be. There isn't a should around it. It's really about what works in the situation for you. So I really encourage you to be gentle on yourself and practice slowly over time. All right. Let us get to the next question. I'm struggling with my husband's need to have certain foods in the house that are triggering for me. Things like crisps, tortilla chips, ice cream, popcorn. When they're in the cupboard, I cannot stop thinking about them. To a point, I end up raiding the cupboard or the freezer and eat up what I find, usually a few days after we buy them. When I was living on my own, I dealt with this by not buying them. He's been very understanding and knows I have a terrible relationship with food, so it's a lot less than he used to have at home, but it's a struggle I'm working on. Okay. Well, again, the first thing that I would say is really have compassion for yourself in the struggle. It is difficult, as you're learning to make peace with food. It can be really kind of overwhelming when this happens, and your need for control is so big, and then something comes in that your experience has been that you can't be in control around these foods. What I want to suggest to you, though, is that the reason why you do have this kind of out of controlness around these foods is actually because of the restriction in the first place. There's nothing inherent in the foods themselves that make it difficult for you to stop eating. It's more what you believe around the foods and what they'll do to you, and what you believe about yourself and your ability to um, eat these foods in a way that doesn't cause you harm. So I think that that's important work to do, is to write down what are all the beliefs you have about these different foods. What do you believe about yourself in relation to these different foods? But really, the answer to this, I believe, and in my experience, both for myself and working with lots of other people, is that you need to let go of the restriction. You see, the restriction is perceived by your brain and your body as a kind of scarcity. And this is going to increase your cravings and increase the desire for the foods. Now, what is the opposite of scarcity? It's abundance. So if you were surrounded by these foods, there was way more of these foods in your house than you could possibly eat in one or even two sittings, then what will happen, maybe not right on the first day, but it probably won't take that long, but you might need to really feel a bit uncomfortable emotionally and possibly physically with this in the beginning. But if you were to really have an abundance of these foods in your home, then what happens is your brain and your body will just kind of relax because you know there's just no way I'm going to be able to eat all of this stuff today. On a conscious level and on a subconscious level, things kind of relax. And what that gives you the opportunity to do is listen to your body, is listen to, am I enjoying this? Does this feel satisfying? Am I still enjoying this? Am I more satisfied now than I was? Or, because at some point, your level of satisfaction, as you reach a point that's beyond a sort of comfortable fullness, your level of satisfaction goes down. Also, your taste buds kind of tire of the same taste if you're paying attention. And so if you notice, I'm not enjoying this anymore, and you know, these are going to be here in 15 minutes, these are going to be here in 2 hours, these are going to be here in 5 hours, these are still going to be here tomorrow, then you know you can have them the very next time you want them. And then the very next time you want them, you do give them to yourself, right? You don't say, oh, I'm just going to delay it. I'm going to delay it. I'm going to delay it. Just do it. Give it to yourself. And you stay with yourself. You stay connected. Stay here. Am I enjoying it? Is it satisfying? Then all of that's going to calm down. It really will. All of that is going to calm down. So here's one little trick you can try. It's to buy, as I said, way more than you could possibly eat in 1 or 2 sessions, and to unpack all of these foods. Like, say it's, I don't know, I don't know what, I don't even know which country you're in, person who asked me this question. But just say here in this country, well, just say it's M&Ms, okay? Just a variety of things, but just say we're talking M&Ms. So if you were to go and buy, I don't know, 5 or 6 or more giant bags of M&Ms and pour them into one container, like quite a big jar or bottle or something, and fill them up. And you have more in packets somewhere. When you choose M&Ms and you have some, having them out of the packet and in a big jar when there's just loads of packets in the jar, you don't know how much you're really eating. You don't know if you've eaten half a packet or a whole packet or whatever it is. And so it, instead of the mentality of, oh, I may as well just finish the packet, you don't have that mindset anymore because you don't have a packet. It's like, oh, well, I may as well just finish this off. Well, no, because I may as well just finish this off would mean a whole jar, and you just know that that's just going to be too much. It's going to feel terrible. And then what you do is you replenish it. So it's always being topped up. You don't let it go too low because that can just trigger the fear in your mind again, or the panic around how much I've eaten, which then can spiral you into more binge eating. So keep the levels topped up, whether it's cookies, candies, whatever it is. If it's cheesecake, buy 3 cheesecakes. You know, it's like have way more than you can possibly eat in a couple of sittings, and then keep replenishing it so that your mind can't go to, oh my goodness, what am I doing? What have I eaten? How much? Better finish off this bag. No, I'd better restrict tomorrow. Ba, 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 because it's the restriction that is causing the problem. So I hope that that helps. The, the trick is abundance and connection, staying connected with yourself while you're eating. How does this feel? Am I enjoying the taste? How am I doing? Etc. All right. Last question. How to make it not about the weight? I was doing so well until I saw it on the front page of my doctor's client portal. Ah. Yep. So the clue actually is what you're saying. What you said was, I was doing so well until I saw it in my doctor's client portal. And I think what you saw was actually your weight number that was recorded in your doctor's client portal. Ah, that's so annoying. And so then what happened was when you saw the weight number, you were not doing so well, right? Something happened. Maybe you binged, or maybe you started trying to diet, and then you had the backlash eating, and or you just constantly thinking about food again. So bring to mind what happened when you saw the weight number. What was the result on you emotionally, on you mentally, on you physically, in terms of your behavior? What was the impact of that? And then think about when you were doing so good, what did that look like to you? Were you on less of an emotional roller coaster? Was the pendulum in terms of your eating, restricting and binging or whatever, had that kind of really calmed down? Was there less obsessiveness around food? Were you being less black and white about food? Were you just eating more calmly? Were you just getting on with other things in your life? What was happening when you were doing so good, as you said, or so well? I think you said so good, actually. Um, so note to yourself what the impact was of both things, because that's how to set yourself back on the course of engaging with food in a way that is not about trying to control your weight, but rather it's about feeling good in yourself. It's about taking care of your needs, and it's about just really enjoying food and taking care of your mental health and so on. So so that's how I would suggest that you get back on the the track, if there is a track, of letting go of the weight being the sort of primary driver around what, when, and how much you're eating and exercising. What you could do, if you want to advocate, is write a letter to your doctor and tell them, look, this was my experience. When I saw that on the client portal, this is what happened, which is exactly the opposite of probably what you would ideally like for me. And I really want to request that on my customer whatever notes, or whatever you'd called client, what did you call it? Client notes, client account. I would like my, can you make it unseen so that I don't see it if you have to have it? Can you delete it altogether? Um, can you make a plan? Can you talk to, because there's probably some software and that's where it is. Can you talk to the software developers? Because I'm sure you've got other patients who are having the same issue. Um, so yeah, that's what I would suggest you do. All right. So I hope that that was helpful. Um, and yeah, if you have enjoyed this, if you find this approach intriguing and interesting and you would like to find out more, then do go to my website, www.peacefuleating.co.uk/subscribe, and you can get instant access to my guide to peaceful eating, which is not a very long read, but it really does give you a very good understanding of this approach. So I hope that that is interesting to you, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Bye for now.